All right, let's continue our conversation about building your fundamentals for understanding generative AI, because you are taking this course right now to learn, but what I really want is for you to go beyond this course and be able to have conversations about AI, about generative AI in the workplace, and really have the confidence and curiosity to do so. And learning about these terms and how they relate to generative AI is really important. So let's dive in. What is data? This is a word we've probably heard a lot about, right? Data is in the news. We talk about data, but data is absolutely fundamental to AI. You will not have AI without data. Okay. And data can be anything in this context, right? Anything that can be recorded or represented. So we're talking about numbers, words, images, videos, sounds, actions, right? A lot of what we do online is tracked. Our behaviors, sometimes offline, are also tracked. And so that is turned into data. And oftentimes that data is being used in AI to make predictions, to solve problems, or in generative AI cases, to create new content. And so think of data like building blocks that the models use to understand, analyze, and make decisions about a task or problem to solve. Models, which we just learned about, look for patterns in the data to understand the problem to solve or the task it's trying to complete. And when it comes to generative AI, it needs a lot of data. Like, it is hard to explain just how much data these models need in order to do what they do. Traditionally, AI needs some data, but generative AI is on a whole other level. And so I made this photo, generated it, to really show the vastness of the data that these models, these generative AI models, use in order to get you that recipe or output, whatever you're looking for in ChatGPT. Here's an example. The pile is a huge collection of text data, right? And you're kind of looking at this visual representation of this data of 800 gigabytes. That's made up of information from 22 different sets of data. So it's a mega data set of other data sets, like academic papers and professional articles. And that's equivalent. So in this data set, it is equivalent to 200,000 high resolution photos, 172 HD movies, or about 160,000 ebooks, which is like, okay, that's a lot. The pile is just like, it's not even the most popular data set. I just found this online and was like, oh yeah, that's a big data set, but it's not the biggest. And it's certainly not the only data set that would be used to train a generative AI model. And so you start to see just like how vast these data sets are. And so really your next question should be like, okay, so well, what's in that? Right? So what do you mean by academic papers and professional articles? What kind? Right? And you can kind of see maybe from some of the abbreviations here where these articles might come from. But like, I don't know what BC2 is, right? So we talk about the data as if, there are words and pictures that going in there. What's actually happening is the data is actually being transformed into numerical representations. And then it's being calculated by very advanced mathematical systems and spitting out something that you can understand and translate it back into, images or words or something that you can actually understand. So the model itself is not actually understanding the words. It's getting a mathematical representation and making a prediction about what the most likely word is, or the most likely combination of images are to satisfy your query, right? So it has no baseline understanding of what you're putting in. It's just guessing, and it's very good at it because, again, it's been trained on so much information, so much data. So when we talk about generative AI, we are also talking about data. You'll see in conversations about generative AI how big the model is. They're making bigger models and even bigger models. And GPT-5, which doesn't exist yet, or maybe it does, is going to be big. And it's like, yeah, but like, what about the data? Right? Because data is the foundation of the model. And so when we talk about data, we're talking about the data that was used to build the model, the data that was used to further improve the model, because you can take a model and then make it better with more data. The data that was left out. So if I'm building a model to solve a problem, what data should I be using? And who decides what data goes in versus what gets left out? The quality of the data, right? So what's in that data? Does it accurately represent, right, the problem at hand? Where did it come from? Who owns the data, right? You'll see that because there are some lawsuits happening right now, some copyright lawsuits, because we have questions about who has the right to that data when it comes to training foundational models or AI models. So a lot of things going on in the data space. That's why it's so important to pay attention to data, to ask questions about data. In the next video, we're going to be talking about training, how we get the data into the model.